Kira Kavanagh, and today I will be reading Pete the Cat and His Four Groovy Buttons. Now, I chose this book for a preschool age group for a couple of reasons. The first one being that it has a repetitive aspect to it, so this age group was old enough that they've got their language skills developed enough that they can join in, and it's also got a music part so they can even sing along if they, got into the pattern of the book. Another reason why I chose this book for a preschool age group is that there is a counting aspect to the book, and preschoolers are, working on their counting skills, and this is a good opportunity for them to practice those and maybe show off some skills they already have. So it's got a little bit of a basic math concept in it, so that's a little bit of a challenge, which is also nice because we want to get into that zone of proximal development. So, to help us read our book today, we have Pete the Cat himself and his four groovy buttons. So without further ado, let's begin. So, Pete the Cat, created and illustrated by James Dean, and the story by Eric Litwin. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with four big, colorful, round, groovy buttons. He loved his shirt so much, he sang a song. My buttons, my four groovy buttons. My buttons, my four groovy buttons. Should we count the buttons on Pete's shirt? 1, 2, 3, 4. Very good. Pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Should we count again? I think so. 1, 2, 3. 3 buttons. 1, 2, 3. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no, 'cause buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? Let's count them. 1, 2. 2 buttons. 2. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no, because buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no! Another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? How many buttons? 1. Just 1 button. Who can tell me what this number is? 1. 1 button. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no, 'cause buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My button, my 1 groovy button. My button, my 1 groovy button. Pop! Oh no! The last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? How many buttons? I don't see any buttons. 0 buttons. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no, 'cause buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt. What do you think he saw? What do you think he saw? His belly button! And he kept on singing his song. Do you guys all have belly buttons? You do? Me too. I think everybody has a belly button. My button, still got my belly button. My button, still got my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. Buttons come and buttons go. The end. So after the story, there's a couple things we do to help cement the book and help, engage the kids more than they've already been engaged. So one of the things we would talk about is the narrative structure. So what came first? That's right, Pete put on his shirt. And then what happened? That's right, he lost a button. And was he sad? Yeah, he was sad. But then what happened? He didn't cry, no, because he still had buttons. And then what happened when he lost all of his buttons? That's right, he still didn't cry because he had his belly button. So that's one of the things we would do. Another thing we would do was talk about whether the kids had ever lost something and how that made them feel and whether or not they cried about it. And if they were able to be like Pete and keep on singing and still be happy, because even though buttons come and buttons go, there's always a bright side and there's always something that's good. But for Pete, he still had his belly button. And if there's ever a good thing that can come, even though you might lose something. Another thing we would do is talk about counting, because there was a counting aspect to this book. So we could say, how many buttons did Pete start with? Does anybody remember the number? That's right, it was 4 buttons. And so on and so forth. We can discuss, how many buttons Pete had throughout the book. And then finally, I would have a craft or an activity set up, maybe something involving some buttons, some different colored buttons. We could also cut out circles from paper and see if we can draw our own buttons. And that would be good for fine motor skills, for cutting out the buttons, and also, sticking them on the paper. And yeah, that's the whole Pete the Cat activity, and we would pass around Pete at the end and let everybody look and see if they can see his belly button. This particular Pete doesn't have a belly button, but he has a heart hidden under his shirt, and we can stick on the buttons on and off, and it'd be a really fun story activity. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed.